Combat Series from Multimanpublishing. It's a fairly new series for them. It's only been around for about 5 years or so. I think the first game here is Last Blitzkrieg. It's the one I have on the table, and I think this came out in 2016. And so this particular one is the very first game in the series, but the latest rules that I have come with, which one is it? Panzer's Last Stand, which is Budapest. Well, this is a 4-map game. It's Battle the Bulge at a battalion level of scale. So it's a big game. I don't have obviously the full thing set up. I don't have space for that in my little house. But I do have a nice 1-map scenario set up. This is the breakthrough attempt on the southern sector of the Bulge. And so if you're familiar with Battle of the Bulge, you got Clairvaux right up here, which is where there's been a lot of activity the first 3 days. Bastogne is there, and Houffalize, Edelbrook, and Echternach, and that pretty much should help you to orient where things are. Map is standard, what you get from Multimanpublishing. It's pretty easy to read so far. This particular system, how it works is you activate formations by formation. So you have units, each formation has an activation marker with it. You can randomize those if you want for a more chaotic game. I'm not doing that particular method, but you can actually use that method if you so desire. And so you activate units by formation. When the formation activates, you roll on a table to determine how strong of an activation that activation will be. You roll on a snafu table. And depending on that, it's going to dictate a lot about what you can do during that activation. Units are going to move individually. They're going to fight in one of 2 modes. For example, this unit here from the 26 Volksgrenadiers is in its marching mode. And when it first activates, it can, if it's within range of its HQ, flip over to its tactical mode, which gives it an assault capability. And so basically you're going to choose modes, you're going to move, you're going to shoot, you're going to engage in several different kinds of combat. And the beauty of this system is it highlights so many different ways in which units will choose to use their combat effectiveness. So there's lots of different kinds of combat, and it's all pretty elegantly put together in the combat system here. So one of the ways that you can engage in combat is you can do what's called regular attacks against a location, hopefully ejecting them from that location, and or inflicting casualties. But usually regular attacks are to seize ground, not to inflict casualties. Casualties are going to be marked using these pollard markers that you're going to put underneath units. That's the only part of the system I don't particularly love, but it works very well with this system. The number of steps of a unit is denoted by the number inside the yellow box, the top of the NATO symbol. So this guy's got 6 steps. No pollard marker means it's at its full capacity. So you can do regular attacks that pushes guys away and also inflicts casualties, but usually on the attacker, that's where you're going to take casualties, is making those kinds of attacks. You can also drop artillery rounds on a location in order to destroy steps, and you roll on a table in order to do that using the artillery value of the HQ. And that's where artillery points come into play. You have supplementary artillery that can be attached to that HQ. For example, the 26 Volksgrenadier has 2 artillery points in addition to its printed artillery rating of 3 for a total of 5. So unless you roll a bad snafu, you're going to get 5 shots and potentially can do up to 5 steps of damage on an enemy unit or stack of units. Stacking units does give you an advantage in defense, but it also makes a big juicy artillery target, so use stacking very carefully in this game. One of the other things that you can do is engagements. So units that have, let's say, let me pull somebody out here that you can actually see better. We'll pull this guy out here. This is an armored valued unit. It's actually a dual unit. The arrow means it's assault capable, attack capable. So it can do regular attacks, but the red number on the left, that 2, means that it has an armored value of 2, The superscript 3 is its action rating. The higher that number, the better the quality of units. And the number on the right is its movement rating. Red means it's tactical movement, black means it's wheeled, and white means they are hoofing it on foot. Well, these guys here can do what's called engagements. If you have a red strength, armor value, action value, or armor value, you can do what's called engagements. You roll on an engagement table, and the goal is to try to kill enemy tank steps from other tank units or mechanized units that have vehicles. So you can do engagements. You can also attack by fire in order to kill steps from units that aren't protected by vehicles. And so the real puzzle of the game is knowing how to use the types of combat units that you have to their best effectiveness to obtain the goals presented to you on the map. And those goals are very simple. I mean, in this particular scenario, you got to control 4 of 7 objectives. There's an objective up here, a little village up here where this river crossing is. There's Clairvaux, Hoflies, Bastogne, Martelange, Wiltz, and Edelbrook are those are your 7. So you just got to control 4 of those 7. Well, how do you do that? You're going to have to use your formations, and you're going to have to use them wisely. When you activate a formation, after you're done, you have to roll to see if they pick up fatigue points. The more fatigue points you get, the harder it is for them to not roll a snafu and lose a whole activation. You can get rid of fatigue by resting that formation and not doing anything with them. But the idea being the more intensive the combat that you engage in, the more activations you engage in, the more likely it is you rack up fatigue and they lose their cutting edge with time. The game does an amazing job, I think, of capturing the feel of battalion level operational combat without a lot of rules weight. This is a system that I think the rules are fairly easy to understand, but they are very different. You're not going to be counting ratios. You're not going to be looking at the types of tables that wargamers are typically conversant with. So that's one of the things you want to bear in mind. But there's great tutorials online. There's, in addition to an excellent series rulebook, which has an outstanding index in it, by the way. In addition to that, there are some crib sheets. There's some little booklets that you can read through that gives you some examples of play and lots of supplementary tables to help you to understand the flow of things. And then once you get to play it, this is a system I have absolutely loved how this system works. And how supply works is it's a stripped down version of what basically it gives you the effect, I think, of what ultimately you arrive at with OCS without all the bean counting. So what happens in this is you're just basically tracking supply routes from your headquarters to a supply train. You want to keep those within a certain distance. And as you extend further away, you have to bring your supply train closer. And basically the movement of those, the interaction between your HQ and the logistics train will produce effects on the snafu roll that you make whenever you activate that formation. And that's basically going to give you the effect of stretching supply lines, being, supply being restored after, your trucks have caught up with you. All of that is elegantly abstracted into this particular system. So it's an outstanding system. If you want something small to jump into, if you want to check out how this system works without buying one of the really big games like Last Blitzkrieg or Panzer's Last Stand, those are the 2 really big ones. I think there's Brazen Chariots, which is also a 4-mapper, but it doesn't have as many pieces. It's just a lot of territory. It's Operation Compass in North Africa, and Operation Crusader in North Africa, and so that one's a little bit cheaper. But I would recommend Baptism by Fire, which is Tunisia, Kasserine Pass. Very playable, 2 maps, a fraction of the pieces that you're dealing with here. Great way to learn the system. The only one I don't have yet is the new Aracore is the only one I don't have in the series. But I'll do some videos and kind of show a little bit about how this one works. And I hope you enjoyed this. I haven't done a YouTube video in a while. Sorry for that. Been very busy with the holidays. And now we got a new year going. And getting into a new series. I'm about halfway through this particular scenario. This is a 6-turn scenario, and we've had some very interesting developments. The 110th has held up 2 Panzer divisions for an obscene amount of time in front of Clairvaux. The defense here has finally collapsed, so now it's basically a race for the Americans to hold on to Hoflies, Bastogne, and Martelange, Adelbruck. I'm willing to concede Wiltz. Clairvaulx's lost. This location up here is a lost cause. You're not going to hold on to that. But I believe that we can hold on to Edelbruck. So we got the CCA of the 9th Armored down here in support of the 109th. 4th Infantry Division is holding its own and then some against the various Panzer Grenadier divisions in and around Echternach. And we also have the 10th Armored on scene to kind of fill the gap and support as needed. By the way, you don't really want to mix and match your units around. You have to keep your formations separate whenever possible. Otherwise, you run into coordination markers, which negatively affect your snafu rolls. But I had no choice in the defense of Edelbruck because we had to hit the 5th Fallschirmjägers and drive them back. They have support of 88s, but in their initial march, they had guys in march formation and they were not in attack mode, which means they couldn't use the support guns or any of the standoff support. All of these units that are marked as support, they're considered to be intrinsic to all of the units that are in attack formation that are attached to that HQ and within range of that HQ. And so I took advantage of that system to use my tanks to really drive off those infantry and shoot up their trucks and get them back from Edelbruck and able to kind of settle things down there. But I think we can hold that. The bigger question mark is Hoflies. The CCR of the 9th Armored is in a terrible location. It's just the way things worked out. I should have gone ahead and marched them back. Instead, I sent them to support the 110 when I should have conceded it and sent them back to Hoflies, but I didn't. So basically, they're in the process of being overrun by the 116 Panzer. Panzer Lehr is still caught in a traffic jam trying to pass through the 116. I didn't want to end up with coordination markers on both formations, so they're basically holding tight. They're like a coiled spring, hoping to unleash them as this main spearhead on Bastogne, because the 2nd Panzer has been bloodied up quite a bit, actually. The 101st Airborne is in position, and we've got airborne troopers going up to Hoflies to try to set up a defensive line. Obviously, we don't want to lose Bastogne, but my bigger concern is that if they take Hoflies, we will lose the game. I don't see how I can hold on to Wiltz because this particular unit's incredibly weak. I had the choice either to try to hold Wiltz or hold Hoflies, and I felt that Hoflies was more holdable than Wiltz was because I could actually get support from the 101st up there and still cover Bastogne. The same was not true of trying to hold Wiltz. It's just too far from Bastogne. Could get the CCB of the 10th Armored there. It's possible. In theory, it's possible for these guys to get up and get in support. But the bottom line is the 26 Volksgrenadiers has moved like they've moved incredibly fast. There's muddy terrain right now that'll slow everything up, and I think that's going to help the Americans to settle down their defenses. But for the next 3 turns, that is the objective and what we've got to hold. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoy some more of these. We'll take another look at this. I also this year want to look at Fields of Fire. I did some intensive play of Fields of Fire the last month, but I haven't done any YouTube videos of that, mainly because I probably get too many rules wrong, and the rules lawyers pop on my channel, and yeah, it's just no fun for anybody. So I may go ahead and do some of those videos, but it usually ends up with more harassment than anything on my end. So I prefer to do videos that people enjoy and not just sit back and critique. So there you go. That is Battalion Combat Series. Just a quick look at the system. I'm Joel Toppin. Hope you enjoyed the video.